people that will join us, and this topic is so interesting. So I expect that a lot of people will join us. But in the meantime, if you like to, please feel free to put on the chat kind of where you're coming from, which duty station, your name, what you do. Just so feel free to kind of use the chat button as well. If you have any questions as well, please feel free to put it into the chat, and we will address the questions at the end. Okay, so I'll just wait a couple more seconds. Thank you from Jordan, from Ikla, from Unra, from Albania, from Ukraine, from Liberia, Cyprus, Lesotho, from Rome, Zimbabwe, Costa Rica. Wonderful. So many, this is really the United Nations from so many places around the world: Hungary, Budapest, Mali, Jerusalem, Mogadishu, Egypt, Yemen, Somalia. Wonderful. So welcome to all of you. Great. Okay, so I think I'm going to get started while you guys kind of put in the chat. So welcome to all of you for our public health conversation series. This series was started actually by the United Nations Department of Healthcare Management and Occupational Safety and Health group. And I am in charge of the public health section in this division. And what we do is really, our purpose is to keep United Nations staff healthy and, happy working. And, I like to say, that if we have a healthy UN staff population, we'll have a healthy world, because the United Nations staff are serving the rest of the world, right? So we also have to keep ourselves healthy. So that's why we started this whole series. In this series, we try to have monthly or once every 2 months talks, and our focus is really on the physical health of staff. And so today, we're really excited to have a world-renowned speaker with us, and we'll be focusing on the topic of how to eat to beat disease, and how food really can be medicine to us if we want to let it be, right? It can also be bad for us as well. So just to introduce our speaker today, we're really, really privileged to have Dr. William Li. He's an internationally renowned physician, scientist, and 2 times New York Times bestselling author of the book Eat to Beat Your Diet, Burn Fat, Heal Your Metabolism, and Live Longer, as well as Eat to Beat Disease, the new science of how your body can heal itself. So his groundbreaking work has led to the development of more than 40 new medical treatments and impacts the care of many, many diseases that you hear about: cancer, diabetes, blindness, heart disease, and obesity. And his TED Talk, for example, titled "Can We Eat to Starve Cancer?" has garnered more than 11 million views. And he has a popular YouTube channel as well. There's more than 17 million views. He has appeared on many talk shows, featured on many magazines. And apart from all that, he is also president and medical director of the Angiogenesis Foundation. And he is leading a global initiative that is focusing on how we can use food as medicine for us. And we will give you more information about his website and his YouTube channel as well. But, every time I meet Dr. Li, I always tell him that he is, proof of his work, because he has a glow about him. And so this meeting is great for all of us to learn more of how we can get that same glow as well. So over to you, Dr. Li. Thank you so much for being with us. And after we hear from you, we will have a little conversation and dialogue where we'll pick up questions from the chat, and we'll talk more about the concerns of the people listening. But for now, over to you for a presentation on this topic. Thank you so much.
Yes, thank you, Dr. Tan. It's a real pleasure to be invited to speak today. I understand that many of you watching or listening come from all around the world, and that's something that's very close to my heart. Growing up with an Asian background in America, but traveling around the world, appreciating the differences in culture and also the differences in food traditions that inform, the communities around us. And I think this is the one thing in a environment that seemingly has so many differences. The one thing that brings all of us together around the world is that we all have to eat. And so the united front of food and health is something that I wanted to discuss with you. And oftentimes, when you hear people discussing this idea of food as medicine, which is becoming an increasingly common phrase, one thinks about you have to eat at the salad bar, you have to work out and join a special gym, and you have to eat certain supplements, and really it can be seemingly not accessible to most people when it comes to healthy food. But I'm here to tell you that that's not true. Regardless of where you are, regardless of what types of food you can access, we all actually have the agency to make choices that actually can be healthy for us. This is not just for the day, but really, and not necessarily only limited to the time you're stationed in your location, but really a lifetime of choice and a lifetime of empowerment to be able to activate your own health. And so, what I'm going to talk to you about today is really not just about food, but what we are learning from research, my research, about how your body, our bodies, all respond to what we put inside it. Naturally, the choices are if you put something unhealthy in your body's not going to respond very well. If you put something beneficial in your body will respond in a really wonderful, healthful way. And if you're interested in not just near term health, but long term health, many people think today about longevity as a personal goal. But if you want to live long and live well, starting today, these choices that anyone can make, and I think I'm going to by the end of my presentation today, I'm hopeful that you'll see that these are choices that are easy to make for anyone, no matter where you are. You can activate your body's own health defenses. So we're going to talk about that, but I want to share my screen now, and we can discuss food as medicine in a more profound way. So the old saying, and I think this is quite an ancient saying, is that an apple a day can keep the doctor away. But the reality is that there is a dose. It's about 2 apples a day, and it's not just about keeping the doctor away. It's really about helping your body thrive so that you can be as healthy as possible. Now, it's not just apples, and that's the key thing. It is many different types of fruits and vegetables, nuts and legumes, and healthy oils that you can find all around the world. Now, obviously, we often hear again about health food as something very rigid. But what my research has shown is that healthy food can be found in many different types of cuisines. And it's just about making the right choice for you based on what you can find at the time. So let's talk about that. Um, you might recognize, some of you, this kind of a market that is present in Southeast Asia. And if you look closely at the foods, you'll see that there are cucumbers and there are green onions and there are tomatoes and chili peppers, um, all manner of foods that the people who eat these foods don't think about health. They think about these foods as part of their lifestyle. And so while as a scientist, can look at each individual food and put the research into to find out what's good for you, the reality is that healthy eating can be very, very natural in multiple locations. And you see this, I'm sure, wherever you're stationed, and I see this in my travels and in my own research. But everywhere you go, you can find um, root vegetables, you can find green vegetables, you can find spices and herbs, you can find fruits that come off the trees. And even if you eat in a cafeteria, if you actually have a balanced option of vegetables, fruits, and grains, and by the way, if you have tea and coffee, which are two of my favorite beverages, you'll actually have access to something that is good for you. So I'm going to share with you what some of the evidence is on how local eating and making good choices can actually be beneficial. Okay, so, the first question, before I show you anything more about food, is to ask the question that I asked myself and my professors when I went to medical school. So, I'm a medical doctor. I trained in internal medicine, which in many parts of the world is equivalent to a physician. I do some GP style work as well. But in the rigorous training that I've gone through, I learned about many different types of diseases: cancer, diabetes, this is dementia, this is obesity, this is autoimmune disease, and these are infectious diseases. I had to memorize bacteria time and time and again and memorize the antibiotics that we would have to prescribe to treat the infection. Um, Now, all this was very important, but the question I always had as I was learning about disease, I would also ask my professors, yes, yes, but what is health? And the answer I would get is, don't worry about it. Um, uh, Health is simply the absence of disease. And I found that to be very disconcerting, unsatisfactory. It just can't be. The absence of something, it does not actually tell you the answer for the result. You know, the absence of money doesn't actually tell you why there's poverty. The absence of war doesn't actually tell you what is peace, right? So the absence of disease, similarly, doesn't tell us what is health. So I set off in my career to try to figure that question out of what is health. And so this is now what I'm going to share with you what we found. What we found is that health is, in fact, hang on a second. Here, I'm just trying to uh, get to my slides. Sorry, I'm having a little problem here. Health is actually the result of many of our body's own defense systems that are actually uh, uh, hardwired, that we were born with. And these defense systems are like a castle. And a castle, even if you've never seen a real castle, but you've only heard about it in a fairy tale, a castle is a remarkable construction. It has it's very strong and fortified for defense. It has a moat around it to prevent invaders from crossing over. It's in a turret. It's got these little slits on the walls so that the soldiers can fire arrows to protect the inhabitants of the castle. It's got sloped walls so that invaders can't climb up very easily. And it's got little holes buried so that people can be trapped into the ground with stakes on it, right? So this is the classic castle. Well, our body is similarly designed to be a fortress. And these are just five of the methods of the defense systems that are programmed in all of our bodies. These defense systems were hardwired. They developed in your body when you were still in your mother's womb. And when you were born, when you took your very first breath, all of these health defenses were turned on, and they continue to fire on all cylinders, meaning that they are powered up, okay, at full speed to keep you healthy. This is what health is a result of these systems that I've worked on in my research to defend your health. And until your very last breath, they will still be working on your behalf. Now, when these systems are compromised, when they are damaged, that is actually when we get sick. So why do we get sick? It's really because our health defenses are not properly activated, right? Shields are down, gate is open, defenses are down. And I think at the United Nations, you can understand the global health of our body is very much dependent upon the good functioning collaboration of our health defenses to prevent bad things from actually happening inside our bodies. So I want to not explain in detail these defenses, but I show you this because foods that we eat, ordinary foods, simple foods, can activate and trigger and fire up these health defenses for our benefit. And the first one that I'll tell you about is our circulation. Now, we all have 60,000 miles worth of blood vessels in our body. Now, this is 60,000 miles is long enough where if you were to pull out all your blood vessels and line them up end to end like a thread, you'd form you'd form a thread that would wrap around the earth twice. All right. Enormous capacity. When your blood vessels are healthy, you have actually a chance to be healthy for the rest of your life. When your blood vessels are sick, you won't be healthy, no matter what else you do. And so one of your health defenses is, of course, angiogenesis. Blood vessels, genesis, how your body controls them for health. So um, this is sort of the what they look like when you look at them close up. They're very tiny. The smallest ones are thinner than a human hair. Now, how do we activate our blood vessels? Well, it turns out that the apple is actually a great way to activate our blood vessels for health, the 60,000 miles. We have discovered that apples contain a natural substance. Don't worry about the name, but I'll just say it anyway. It's called chlorogenic acid that actually is very, very healthy for our circulation. All right. Now, apples also have a skin. And if you wash the apple carefully, the skin also contains a natural substance called ursolic acid. Ursolic acid is not only found in apple skin, it's found on the skin of many different fruits as well. So dried fruits, which are so common around the world, the skin is usually dried on the fruit, and that's how you can get some ursolic acid. You can go to the local market to find dried fruits as part of local traditional snacks, for example. Or, for those of you who like trail mix, so to speak, that's with nuts and dried fruits. That's another way to be able to get this ursolic acid. So I've just told you that you can actually eat fruits that contain this natural substance found in the peel that lowers inflammation, okay, and actually grows new blood vessels. And here's an example on the left-hand side. This is from research in the lab, where the arrow on the left shows, you see two legs of a lab animal. No blood vessels, no circulation on the left leg, and good circulation in red on the right leg. And you treat them with this ursolic acid that comes from fruit peel, like the dried fruits I just showed you. And look, 3 weeks later, you've brought back the circulation. Amazing. And now the leg is actually healthy and the animal is strong. This is actually what eating fruit peel, as well as the flesh of the fruit, like in the apple, can do for us. All right. Not just fruits, barley can do the same thing. Ancient grain. Okay. Barley has also been shown to be able to improve blood supply. And I'm not going to go into the details to show you this, but you can kind of see in those 4 blocks on the upper right-hand side, you can see one of the blocks has a brownish oval, a large one, on the lower left-hand corner of the upper right square, okay, in B. And you can see that's new blood vessels that are grown by feeding barley in the laboratory to animals that need more and better blood supply. All right. In this case, by the way, the blood supply is in the heart. And these are animals that actually were in danger of having a heart attack. And feeding barley, simple grain, easy to cook, was able to actually rescue their heart. Barley is very common as a grain. Add some vegetables to it, cook it as a stew. It's nourishing, a source of protein, a source of dietary fiber, which we'll talk about again, and a source of substances that can actually help improve your circulation. Very, very simple. So this is the science. I'm also showing you the food because the food is what you're going to relate to. This is a good choice to make if you're looking at foods. Now, if you want other circulation helping foods, this is a list of foods that actually can all promote better blood vessel health. And some of these have been studied extensively in humans. And what they do is they keep blood flow going very smoothly in all the right places to all the right organs, your brain, your heart, your kidneys, your liver, your skin, even your hair follicles, so that you can actually continue to have grow hair. So very importantly, attending to your circulation with food, now we realize what a important thing plant-based foods actually can be. So you've probably heard about this, eat plant-based foods, fruits and vegetables. Well, it's more than the salad bar. Hopefully you can see this. And wherever you are around the world, hopefully you can say, oh, I can actually get this, or this I've seen before. These are good choices to make. Notice on the right-hand column, I put dark chocolate. We're going to come back to that in just a moment. Okay, so we just talked about angiogenesis on the left, which is blood vessels, good for circulation. But what about another health defense? Well, you can actually eat to beat disease and eat to activate your health by having foods that can cause regeneration in our body. Now, this is an area of research that when I made some discoveries about regeneration and food, it really surprised me in a delightful sort of way. Regeneration, you may have heard about. You think about a starfish or maybe a salamander. If it loses an arm, it will grow one back. And for many years, I was taught in school, probably like yourself, that humans can't regenerate. If we were to lose an arm, we cannot grow one back. That's true. However, in the recent decade or two, we've begun to realize that, in fact, we do regenerate from the inside out. We can't grow a whole arm, cannot grow a whole arm or a leg, but we can grow our organs back. If your liver were to be damaged, 2/3 of the liver, or even removed, it would actually, if you have 1/3 of it left, it'll grow back. The top of your lung can grow back. Even brain can regenerate, and parts of your heart can regenerate as well. Your nerves can regenerate. So this is very exciting. There's a lot of biotechnology and pharmaceutical work trying to inject stem cells. Stem cells are the cells that actually cause regeneration. But I can tell you that foods can do it as well. The most important thing you need to know is that this is actually you and me when we were just in our mother's womb. This is a few days after your father's sperm met your mother's egg. This is the future you, and it's only stem cells. Lots of little cells that are going to be able to one day form and generate your nose, your eye, your liver, your big toe, your left arm. These are stem cells. And when these stem cells finish their job, you generate a baby. Okay. Now, when we're born as infants and the umbilical cord is cut, all right, this has happened to every single one of us, another commonality of humans. There are some stem cells left in our body. Okay. And the stem cells that are left in the baby are little baby cells. They all go hide in our body. They hide in our bone marrow. They hide in our skin. They hide in our body fat. And there's about 70 million of these stem cells when we're born and when the umbilical cord is cut. They hide out everywhere. Okay. And they, over the course of our lives, they come out to help repair our body from the inside out. You might not know that your blood vessel is sick. Well, the stem cells will come out to repair it. You might not know your liver is having a problem. Your stem cells will come out to repair that. All right. So we are being fixed, repaired continuously from the inside out by our own stem cells. It is one of our health defenses. Here's the problem. As we get older, we lose about 50% of our stem cell activity. All right. There's fewer. The ones that are left are not as active or as vibrant as before. So what are we going to do? Right. So have you ever uh, felt as you've gotten older, man, I'm really tired. I don't have the energy that I used to have. In part, this is because your stem cells are slowing down. So how do you actually activate your stem cells? How do we reignite our stem cells? Well, you can find this with cacao. For those of you who are in Africa or Latin America, this is going to be a familiar sight. Cacao is a comes from a tree, cacao tree. It's a plant-based pod. It's quite heavy. When you shake it, you can feel the seeds rattling around. You cut it open, and it's white, little white flesh, like a lychee around each seed, which you can eat. It's absolutely delicious. Good source of vitamin C. But the seeds inside it are fermented and then dried and then crushed, and that is the basis for making chocolate. Dark chocolate has more of the cacao. So when you have a higher percentage of cacao, it's like 80%, 70%, 80% cacao, dark chocolate. You've got more of the natural substance from the cacao called proanthocyanidin. Okay. Again, please don't worry about the chemical names. Just know that people like me that are working in this field, we know what they are. Okay. But it's found in dark chocolate. The darker the chocolate, the more that you actually have. And coca nibs, the tiny little nibs, that's 100%. So you get really a lot of it. Okay, how do we know that dark chocolate can help improve our stem cells? Well, this has been studied. Okay, this has been studied in research in which people with heart disease, bad blood vessels, okay, that need to be fixed and regenerated, were given hot cocoa. All right, this is hot chocolate with 80% or higher dark chocolate, and they got 2 cups a day. And every individual had their stem cells measured at the very beginning, at the start, and they had 2 cups a day for 30 days, for 1 month. And you can see that over a month of drinking just 2 cups of hot chocolate a day, that the number of stem cells in the bloodstream that can help you regenerate can double. And this is the only thing that was different in these people's lives over the course of a month. Just drinking hot chocolate made with dark chocolate. And we even have a dose. It's 2 cups a day. Pretty amazing. Okay. Simple, easy to find around the world, and something that most people really enjoy. So this isn't about deprivation. Getting healthy is actually leaning into healthy things that we now know you can make a good choice. Now, let's say you don't like chocolate. I don't know many people who don't like chocolate, but other people might say, I don't like hot chocolate, but I do like tea. Now, we know that green tea is good for you, but what about black tea? It's a fermented tea. Many, many places around the world have some version of black teas around there, whether you're talking about the United Kingdom to the Middle East, there's always some form of fermented dark tea. Well, guess what? Dark tea contains a natural substance called catechins and theaflavin, all right, that actually stimulate regeneration. So again, 2 cups of black tea a day, and if you measure in the bloodstream the number of stem cells over the course of course of time, after 1 week, you can actually increase the number of stem cells just by drinking 2 cups of black tea a day. All right. So notice these are not huge amounts of food because more isn't better. You get benefit just by having 2 cups of black tea a day for a week or 2 cups of hot cocoa with dark chocolate over the course of a month. This is easy to do. And here are some more foods that can stimulate your body's health defense to regenerate yourself from the inside out. Again, remember I'm telling you, this is information that you can use to apply to your everyday life by seeing what's around you. And in my books, Eat to Beat Disease, and this is going to be recorded, so you can go back and look at these lists at your leisure, or take a picture with your phone of the list. But I would wager to bet that you can find one or more of these at some point, wherever you are, but certainly over the course of your lifetime. These are choices, healthy choices you can make. Now, I'm just going to finish off by telling you something super exciting, which is, and powerful, which is that the microbiome, healthy bacteria in your gut, particularly, you might have heard about this. Gut health is very important, the gut microbiome. Well, I work in this space now, and we've discovered that the gut microbiome is so powerful because healthy bacteria protect our overall body health. And I'm going to show you how. First, how many bacteria that we have. We have 39 trillion healthy bacteria in our body. What's amazing is that when I went to medical school, learning to be a doctor, I had to memorize for weeks hundreds of bacteria that cause disease. Now, obviously, there are many bacteria that cause terrible diseases. And as a doctor, I was only taught about the bad bacteria. And in fact, I always thought if you have a bacteria, you must know how to kill it by prescribing the right antibiotic. And indeed, that can be life-saving. But here's what you need to know. We've now discovered that most of the bacteria that we encounter in our lives, we don't even know that we're encountering them because they don't make us sick. In fact, they make us well. And these bacteria, a lot of them live inside our body, in our gut. 39 trillion healthy bacteria. These are healthy communities that live inside our gut. It's kind of, think of the bacteria like fish in a coral reef. If you live near the shore, for example, at the Great Barrier Reef, one of these marvels of the planet. I had the chance to go to the Great Barrier Reef some years ago and was swimming in there, and it was amazing. You couldn't count the number of fish and marine organisms that were swimming around. It was a brilliant community of these organisms, and we didn't know what everything was, the role of every fish or snail or clam was in the or turtle in on the reef, but that's okay. They all function together to actually make that reef as healthy as possible, and that's what our healthy bacteria do. So, on a more serious level, on a more concrete level, what do they do? Well, we're beginning to figure this out. Our healthy gut bacteria, our microbiome, lowers inflammation. As you know, inflammation is bad for current health and future health. Chronic inflammation is the root cause of many of these chronic diseases, particularly in the developed world, diabetes, dementia, heart cardiovascular disease, and cancer. Inflammation is present in all of them. All right. Anti-inflammation, and it also makes you tired, fatigued. Anti-inflammation, your gut bacteria lowers inflammation to keep you healthier. Lowers blood cholesterol, which is very important for heart health. Helps to lower blood glucose, which is important for avoiding diabetes. All these things are important to have good heart health and brain health. And speaking of brain health, healthy bacteria also improve your mood. Your gut bacteria text messages your brain and sends signals to release happy hormones so that you actually are in a better mood every single day. When your gut, you've got some gassiness and your gut's crampy and it's not feeling so well, but you don't really have a serious infection. It's happened to me. I'm sure it's happened to you. If not recently, then when you were a teenager or maybe a child. Guess what? You're never in a good mood when your gut, when your belly's not happy, when your belly's uncomfortable, right? You know why? It's because those gut bacteria stop sending the signals, stop text messaging your brain. They're struggling themselves. They're having a little internal battle. And so they stop sending signals to your brain. And that's why we're cranky. This is why we're beginning to understand gut health and brain health are very important. Now, your gut health also important for healing. Gut health is also important for immunity. So it prevents us from being infected from bacteria and viruses that we might encounter out in the outside world, whether you're flying in an airplane, whether you're sleeping with other people in a compound, whether you're somebody taking care of somebody who's sick in a community. Look, the reason that we don't get sick all the time is because we've got a good immune system, and our gut bacteria are caretakers for our immune system as well. But our immune system protects us not just from invaders on the outside of the body, but also invaders inside our body, and that is cancer. We all want to avoid cancer. And if you have a good, strong immune health defense and good, strong gut defense, you'll actually be more likely to avoid cancer, as well as these other diseases. These are the growing list of diseases that are linked to a unhappy, unhealthy gut microbiome. Remember, I told you gut microbiome is a health defense. And what happens when it's disturbed? Shields are down, gates are open, alarm is turned off. Okay. And this is the consequence. So that's why the gut microbiome, you have to really take care of it. Now, how do we do that? Well, by eating plant-based foods that have polyphenols, by eating dietary fiber, this is the cancer I'm telling you. Dietary fiber is really, really important. And if you want to see what it looks like, dietary fiber, here's some green beans. I'm sure even if you eat in a cafeteria, occasionally they must serve green beans. What does dietary fiber that feeds the gut microbiome look like? What does the gut bacteria, your healthy gut bacteria, see on the lower right-hand side? That's what your gut bacteria see. That's their food. That's their dinner. Okay. So when we eat, we're feeding our human selves, but whatever doesn't nourish our human bodies actually goes on to feed our gut bacteria, right? This is how the choices that we make to eat can feed our gut bacteria, polyphenols and dietary fiber. So what are some examples? Well, cabbage, which is present almost everywhere in the farmer's market, in the cafeteria, in a salad bar, in a local restaurant, in somebody's home. People are always cooking cabbage everywhere. Okay. And here's another one that has got great dietary fiber. All right. And that is lentils, legumes. Lentils are among the best protein packed lentils. They're dried, they're inexpensive, they're easy to store. You can find them in the market. Again, great source of protein when you don't have a lot of choice. Great to activate your gut microbiome, and so many delicious ways to cook lentils. I actually like to cook, and so a lentil stew or lentil soup, chop up some carrots and celery, that kind of thing. Put a little healthy oil in there, like olive oil, extra virgin olive oil, and add some herbs and spices. And now you have a wonderful warming soup that you can have for lunch or for dinner. All right. And can feed a family. That's another thing, is that these are economical to be able to actually share with others. These are not single meals. It's not like a piece of steak that you want to share for a celebration. These are foods that are good for our health, that it's easy to share among our community. And fermented foods, you probably know, fermented foods are so common around the world. Sauerkraut, yogurt, kimchi, pickled vegetables from China, for example, various parts of Asia, but also Eastern Europe and Africa. Every place has some form of pickling. When you pickle and ferment foods, you're allowing natural, healthy bacteria to grow on them. All right. Those natural healthy bacteria, when we eat these delicious foods, it adds healthy bacteria to replenish, to restore our own gut microbiome. So when you eat kimchi, you eat sauerkraut, you eat pickles, you eat yogurt, okay, you're actually adding healthy bacteria back into your system to do what? To lower inflammation, to help your heart, help your brain, improve your immune system as well. And here are just some of the foods that beneficially activate your gut microbiome. Shields up. Look, dark chocolate in the middle actually appears yet again. Okay. And chickpeas and navy beans, peas, walnuts, turnips. These are foods that are very common in grocery stores and in local markets everywhere. Just remember this. And it can be a little luxurious too. The dark chocolate, the Parmigiano Reggiano, the shiitake mushrooms. Okay. These are all things that you can actually eat and enjoy dramatically. And of course, the chocolate. All right. I want you to pay attention to pomegranate for a second, which is on the third level, because the pomegranate actually connects the microbiome, the gut bacteria, to your immune system. And this has been studied. Okay. Pomegranate is this fruit a little bit larger than an apple. It's got a thick skin, beautiful ruby red seeds with a little layer of juice around it. You can sprinkle them into a salad. You could just eat them right out of the fruit. They grow in tropical areas, and we've now discovered that in the juice of pomegranate, there is a substance called elagitannins that activate your gut microbiome. They feed your gut microbiome. One of the bacteria that it really influences is seen at the bottom in this orange square called Akkermansia muciniphila. Again, please don't worry about memorizing the names, but there is at least one bacteria called Akkermansia that pomegranate activates. And when it activates this bacteria tells your immune system to go fight cancer. Amazing. This is recent discoveries. Eating pomegranate activates your gut, feeds your gut microbiome, activates one bacteria, and that bacteria tells your immune system to go find and destroy cancer cells. All right. And we know this. This has actually been published in the literature. And one of the world leaders, former U.S. President Jimmy Carter, was one of the beneficiaries of having an immune system that was activated and powerful enough to destroy cancer from his skin that went to his brain. Okay. And that bacteria, Akkermansia, clearly played a role. And this is not President Carter, but this is a scan that we as doctors see. And you can see in the red circle on the left, that's the brain tumor, okay, from melanoma, skin cancer, sun exposure. And after getting immune therapy, which is the latest form of cancer therapy, all right, so your own immune system might not be strong enough to actually prevent this, that you had to shore it up to prevent the cancer. But once you have the cancer, even if it's spread to your brain, stage 4 cancer, if you activate your immune system with immunotherapy and you adjust your diet, look at the response on the right. You can get a 90-year-old person's immune system to scrub out and erase the cancer that has gotten into the brain. And not only was President Carter a beneficiary of this, but now hundreds of patients who are being treated with the next generation of cancer therapies, immunotherapy, are also similarly benefiting from this type of approach. What we're now realizing is that you must absolutely make sure the gut microbiome is very, very healthy. And the reason you have to do this is because less than 20% of people respond this way to the gut microbiome in immunotherapy. So you have to improve it. Pomegranate causes one bacteria to thrive, and that one bacteria activates your immune cells. And those immune cells will then respond to the cancer treatment, the immunotherapy. I'm showing you this because this is the cutting edge of cancer treatment. All right. No matter where you are, one day in the future, this is going to be the gold standard treatment for cancer. But I'm telling you how important your immune system and your gut microbiome are as health defenses. I'm showing you this bag of immunotherapy, cancer therapy, for a reason. Because my mother, who was 80, had cancer that spread throughout her body from its endometrial cancer, spread everywhere. And we were able to get her onto this amazing immunotherapy, but we knew that we had to improve her gut microbiome. We had to give her pomegranate. We had to give her polyphenols. We actually had to do everything possible, fermented foods, to make sure her gut health was good. And also to activate this one bacteria, Akkermansia. And after only 3 treatments with this immunotherapy, but making sure her diet was good, and we were giving her proper nutrition and taking care of her gut microbiome and her immune system, after only 3 treatments, all the cancer disappeared. Her own immune system at 80 wiped it all out. And here she is, myself with my mother. Just a few weeks ago, she is healthy at the age of 90 and no longer has cancer. Stage 4 to stage 0. Possible today, not only by advanced treatments, but very importantly, by advanced knowledge of how foods can be used as medicine. So I'm just leaving with you this idea that no matter where you are, food is the common denominator for our society, our cultures, our communities, our families. And in every culture, you can actually find some forms of foods that now we as researchers are discovering can activate your body's health defenses. And I'll just close with this quote from Hippocrates, the father of Western medicine, who once said that natural forces within us are the true healers of disease. And foods, as I hope I've shown you, are one way to activate our natural healing. Thank you very much.
Wonderful. Thank you so much, Dr. Lee. That was amazing. I think it's one of our best talks ever. Um, there are so many questions I have in my mind as well as in the chat. So I think we'll have to do kind of a rapid fire here,
Sure.
just so that we can really, benefit from your wisdom. But just to start off everything, I'll be really curious to understand how you got into this space in the first place. You mentioned you're a foodie. Is that something that triggered your interest in this field?
I grew up in a town in the United States called Pittsburgh, Pennsylvania, that was multi-ethnic. We had communities from Lithuania, from Italy, from Greece, from all around the world. And I grew up really with my friends, my community, celebrating the pride of local foods. So even before I went to medical school, I had this appreciation of local cuisine and cultures. And of course, I like to cook and I'm a foodie, so I like to eat. But later, when I was in medicine training, I realized that the answer that nutrition was absent to medical education. So how I got into this is that I decided to take the research the research tools that's used to develop medicines, and I redirected that research into understanding our food. And that's sort of been a 20 plus year journey that's led to the information that I shared with you.
Thank you so much. So just some questions I have. Obviously, it's delicious. All the food I can see, it's great. I'm keeping my grocery list. But in terms of quantity, is there, some where you eat too much of dark chocolate is going to be not healthy for you? How do we know and titrate that kind of quantity of these
Yeah.
good food products? Yeah.
So something that I'm actually working on right now, and I've written about this in my book, Eat to Beat Disease, and also in Eat to Beat Diet, Eat Your Diet, is actually the concept of food doses. If
Mhm.
food is medicine and every medicine has a dose, what's a dose of the food? Now, we're actually beginning to discover this. How often do you need to eat a food to get a benefit? For example, if you want to lower the risk of prostate cancer, you want to have cooked tomatoes 2 to 3 times a week, and each time you want the dose to be only 1/2 of a cup of sauce, tomato sauce. Not very much. A little bit more is okay, but you don't need to have a lot. Most of the benefits of food come from actually eating less. Now, when you eat a lot of food, even healthy food, that can overwhelm your metabolism. And so I think the idea of overeating is a relatively modern concept because in most places around the world, getting just adequate nutrition, getting enough food is actually the goal. I think in communities that are privileged to actually have abundance, there's a tendency to sort of overeat. I would tell you that cutting down your calories, cutting down the amount of food you eat by 1/3 at every meal, whatever your brain wants to eat. So think about a local holiday or perhaps one of your holiday traditions. You have people over. Our eyes always want to eat more than our bodies need to eat. If you only take 2/3 of what you would want to eat and never take seconds, okay, just enjoy, savor a first helping. That's a good way to actually maintain the healthy input of these foods without overloading your metabolism that itself can cause inflammation and disease. One last thing I'll tell you, if you want to really amp up your health by controlling quantity, try skipping one meal a day. I do it very often. It doesn't have to be every day. Skip a breakfast because you're busy, or skip a lunch. That's fine. We are sort of trained to feel like we need to eat 3 times a day. But in fact, our body's perfectly fine with eating twice a day. That's called
Mhm.
intermittent fasting.
Mhm. Great. Um, Maybe one question I have before I move on to the chat is why is it that we don't seem to hear so much in the media, in the news about what you're talking about? Is it because the food industry is, obviously very strong and powerful as well? But I feel like this information is not as much out there as it should be.
I think that things are changing. This is what I've shared with you is very new science
Mhm.
that's changing our way of understanding simple traditional foods. So we're beginning to have a much deeper understanding of simple foods. I think that what we hear about in the media often is the latest food, the latest concept, the newest technology. What I think is really remarkable about food as medicine is that we don't have to invent new and more expensive things that are hard to access. We can appreciate what has been around for hundreds or even thousands of years in
Mhm.
ways that are more natural. If you go to Instagram, Facebook, YouTube, which is another way of connecting the world, at least on my channels, and my handle is at Dr. Dr. William Lee, Li. I really try to put a steady stream, I try to feed a steady diet of all the information I can out with lots of practical tips. And so hopefully this is just the tip of the iceberg, the beginning of a movement. But the
Mhm.
amazing thing is that you can go on to some of the social media and YouTube channels to be able to get more information.
Great, thank you. I'm going to move on to the chat. So if anyone have any question, please feel free to put it in. I'm just going to kind of throw it at Dr. Lee. So a question about kind of coffee and tea. If we drink coffee and tea and we want to put milk or honey and all that, is that good or should we just avoid all that?
Okay, so you've talked about two of my favorite beverages. I will tell you there's three that I write about. We call it the holy trinity of beverages when it comes to health. Water, clean water, tea, both green tea and black tea, and coffee. Okay, these three beverages are healthy as in their fundamentals. Notice I did not say fruit juice, soda, regular soda, diet soda, beer, alcohol, wine. Those are belong in a different category. But the three healthiest beverages include coffee and tea. Now, coffee and tea are healthy because not only is the liquid hydrating, which is very important for health, but the polyphenols from the tea leaf and the polyphenols from the coffee bean dissolve into the fluid so that the water, so that when we drink the coffee or tea, our bodies are benefiting from those natural chemicals. As I mentioned to you, we actually know what some of the polyphenols all. Coffee also has chlorogenic acid, the same bioactive I showed you was in apples. Okay. Um, uh, uh, we want that. It's good for our metabolism, good for lowering inflammation, good for our gut health, good for heart health, good for blood vessels or circulation. Now, what about putting sugar in it? Adding sugar into our coffee or tea isn't good because, in general, added sugar to our foods is not beneficial. You put a pinch in there, that's probably fine. But if you put big spoonfuls, which is what happens, in many commercial places that are serving very sweetened coffees, all right,
Mhm.
that's not good for our health at all. Nor is adding dairy into our coffee or tea, traditional English breakfast tea with cream, or coffee with cream. Dairy creamer is actually it tastes very good, but unfortunately, what happens is that the dairy fat in dairy cream forms little soap bubbles in our coffee and our tea. You don't see the soap bubbles, but um, dairy fat is oil, and coffee and tea are water, and oil and water don't mix, right? So the oil, they form little soap bubbles, the dairy fat, and guess what? The soap bubbles trap the polyphenols, traps the catechins in tea, traps the chlorogenic acid. So then when you drink that nice creamy coffee, all right, what happens is that you won't get the full benefit of all the chlorogenic acid because the soap bubble traps it and takes it right down your gut, and you miss the opportunity to absorb it. You'll get some, maybe 20%, but you'll miss 80% of the good stuff. So, what's an alternative? Well, it turns out that plant-based milks actually do not form soap bubbles. It's not dairy fat. Oat milk, soy milk, cashew milk, all those milks don't actually form those soap bubbles. Coconut milk will form those soap bubbles because it has a lot of saturated fat, like dairy fat. But that's a little pro tip, I would say, for actually how to get the most healthy from coffee and tea. Don't sweeten it. Don't put cow dairy into it. And if you want to sweeten something, you know, honey is actually a pretty good way of sweetening things because it's very subtle sweetening. But honey also has other bioactives that can help kill bacteria, harmful bacteria in your body, and it coats your throat, so it's actually healthier for our gut as well.
Great. Thank you so much, Dr. Lee. Another question about women in a menopausal transition, and the idea of hormones and how to eat to balance hormones and things like that. Do you have any tips about that?
This is an area of active research. Every woman who's going through menopause or men going through andropause, which is the male equivalent of menopause, much less attention being paid to it, experience a change in their body, change in their mood, change in their vibrancy. It's very common. And we don't have the answers to it yet because we don't understand fully what's happening. There are medical answers. Obviously, hormone replacement therapy can be very helpful for some women. Have to be careful because it's a risk benefit for breast cancer, which is true. But I will tell you that most likely some very important home health care you can take for menopause or andropause is helping to treat your gut microbiome well. We think that by optimizing your gut microbiome, if you are undergoing menopause and you're not really sure what to do, there's so many things going on, focus on your gut. Focus on gut health, dietary fiber, polyphenols, avoiding foods that can harm your gut microbiome. It turns out ultra processed foods, those snack foods that you see in an airport or in a convenience store, unfortunately, those ultra processed foods, the artificial coloring, the artificial flavoring, artificial preservatives, the excess sugar, and artificial flavorings in sodas, and artificial sweeteners in some sodas, they actually kill our healthy gut bacteria. So if you avoid those and opt more for the natural, healthier foods, it will help to balance your health at any stage in your life, including menopause.
Great, thank you. Another question about hot chocolate. So I was so fascinated to see that we can drink hot chocolate and be healthy, but is there like a specific type of hot chocolate, hot cocoa that we should go for?
So the darker the chocolate, the better. So
Mhm.
you want it doesn't have to be cocoa. It's just really the cocoa is a great way of actually controlling the amount and getting the dose for that research study. And it's a good way, to depending on where you are, if you can find it. It's a convenient way so you don't have to eat a chocolate bar all the time, right? If you're in hot weather, keeping chocolate from melting is quite difficult. Hot cocoa or cocoa, you can have it cold as well. You can make a cocoa beverage, and you can keep it room temperature or cool. That's another way of doing it. What I would say is get hot chocolate mix or cocoa, dark as possible. 80% or higher is what I would go with. Make
Mhm.
sure you look at the ingredients on it to make sure it doesn't have artificial flavoring, artificial preservatives. Keep it as natural as possible. If you want to sweeten it, you can sweeten it with some honey or you want to add a little sugar. Some places I tell people what I do in my own kitchen if I want to sweeten a little bit of it. Honey, maple syrup, or even maple sugar. It actually has polyphenols from the maple tree. Not present, not easy to get everywhere, but dark chocolate often it's manufactured for hot chocolate with a little bit of sugar. That's okay. Um,
Mhm.
and then use that to make. And by the way, you can make a whole carafe of it. You can make a whole uh, 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 a jug of hot chocolate and just keep it away, cap it off, put it in the refrigerator. If you want to heat it up, you can pour some of it out and heat it up. It can keep for a long time, and it doesn't have to have dairy in it. Okay. You can make it with water as well. So lots of different
Mm.
ways to approach hot chocolate.
Wow, that's amazing. I'm gonna do that right now. Okay. Um, a question about kind of eating, like tablets versus kind of natural ways. So a question of can we treat gut bacteria with just like probiotic tablets? Also about like turmeric. Is that yeah, turmeric tablets versus, fresh
Yeah.
turmeric juice? So what are your thoughts on that?
Yeah, the question I think that you're asking is what about dietary supplements,
Mhm.
probiotics and supplements? I know I've talked about all these compounds, chlorogenic acid and ursolic acid, and I showed some bacteria. Can we just order those and just have them
Yeah,
separately?
exactly.
Well, I tell people that it's best to actually use whole food to get most of the nutrients in that, for health. You get protein, you get natural fats, you get polyphenols, many of them. When you buy them in a tablet, you're getting whatever a manufacturer has decided that they want to give you, but you're missing all the other things, especially dietary fiber. Okay. So I always tell people get your bodies, eat to beat disease by eating a whole plant-based foods, especially. Seafood also counts, counts because of omega-3s, fatty acids. Eat it, enjoy it, make food that tastes great for you, and use supplements, okay, only to top off. That's what the word supplement means. Supplement, add on top of, top off whatever you can't get with your diet. So if you live in a place where you can't get fermented foods, sure, consider probiotics. Um, I will tell you that one of the bacteria, there are some bacteria that we're beginning to do research on that probably worthwhile thinking about. If anybody has access to the internet, I don't know if you can order it to wherever you live, but Akkermansia, that bacteria I told you is so important for immune response against cancer. It turns out Akkermansia also prevents diabetes, type 2 diabetes, and Akkermansia also causes your body to produce its own GLP-1. GLP-1 is the type of target that drug companies are developing these injections. You've probably heard about prescription weight loss drugs. Akkermansia will do it all by itself. So again, pomegranate, you can eat to grow your own Akkermansia, but you can also order Akkermansia online now. So if you go to Amazon, you can click it. So if you know these bacteria, you can order some of them. Um, we're the whole issue of which probiotic is best is still very early in research. But Akkermansia you can order, and there's another one called Lactobacillus reuteri that actually is quite amazing. I've done research on both of these. Reuteri, Lactobacillus reuteri, is found in sourdough bread, traditional sourdough bread. And it actually is made using Parmigiano Reggiano cheese. It's the starter for that kind of cheese. Be careful. Cheese has a lot of salt and a lot of saturated fat, but a little bit on your pasta with your tomato sauce, which is actually good for your prostate. Not so bad for you, right? So again, food should involve pleasure. I mean, I think it's very important that we lean into it and love our food to love our health and not just think about food as something that you need to exclude and deprive yourself of to be healthy. I encourage people to lean into it. Um, but Lactobacillus reuteri is another bacteria that's hard to eat a lot of in fermented foods, but you can also buy a supplement for that. So I take those two supplements myself just to share with you because I can't get enough of it in my food.
Great, thank you. Talking about kind of eating whole foods, what about juicing? Is that something that is helpful, or should we just kind of just eat the whole food versus that? Yeah.
I'm just gonna save you, Dr. Tan, the trouble of writing down the two bacteria that I just said. So I put them just in the chat for everyone.
All right, thank you.
Juicing. Juicing is actually okay. You get all the polyphenols from the juice, but many juicers actually remove the fiber And so you
Mm.
get this, very thin juice, but it removes the fiber as sort of the puck or the stuff on the bottom that gets thrown away. You want that dietary fiber for the reasons we talked about. Good for gut health, good for immune health, good for mental health. So
Mm.
if you're going to juice, make sure you have the pulp or the fiber in it. That's the good stuff. Okay. Now the other thing you need, and commercial juices that are clear apple juice, they filtered away all the good stuff. So avoid the clear juices, go for the cloudy juices. And remember, when you're having a juice, it can actually have a lot of sugar from the fruit. So let me give you an example. If I told you eating an orange is very, very healthy, right? Citrus, orange, tangelo, grapefruit, mandarin orange, it's seasonal in the wintertime. It's good for you, right? I love oranges. It's got vitamin C. It's got hesperidin, aerogenin. These actually improve your metabolism. Got a lot of dietary fiber. Also has sugar. And that sugar in the fruit is okay when you eat the whole fruit. But so if I were having oranges, I would eat one orange in the morning, let's say, and I would get my dose of those healthy aspects from my body, activate my health defenses with the sugar from only one orange. If I order a tall glass of orange juice, for example, right? Do you know how many oranges it takes to make a tall glass of orange juice?
I think a
Take a
lot.
guess. Yeah, eight
Five?
oranges. It takes eight
Oh my
oranges
gosh.
to make a tall glass of orange juice. All right. Now, you can get some of the pulp and a lot of the bioactives, polyphenols from eight oranges, but you're getting the sugar from eight oranges as well. That's a lot of
Mm.
sugar. So I would tell people if you enjoy juice, feel free to drink it if it's have the pulp and no added sugar. Okay, because it's going to have a lot of sugar. It's always better and healthier to eat the whole fruit because I would never eat eight oranges in one setting. I might eat
Mm.
one or two, never eight. And so that's the way you can kind of control the amount of sugar you're putting in. Sugar's good. You actually, I mean, your body needs sugar. I mean, there's a lot online that demonizes sugar, and I think that's not correct either. It's just that you don't want to overload yourself with sugar.
Mhm. Okay. There's so many questions, but I just gonna be really quick, asking about wine. Is that wine good for you? How much wine?
Well, wine is has been studied extensively.
Mhm.
My position on wine is that it is one of the wine and beers are lagers. They're traditional beverages in human society. As long as we've been able to grow grains and ferment grains, we use wine or beer or some type of alcohol for our rituals, celebrating a holiday, celebrating a wedding, celebrating a newborn, celebrating something, a funeral. It's all part of recognition. So I deeply respect culture, so I think that it's important to recognize that's part of it. In no case is the alcohol itself beneficial. What has been beneficial in both beer and wine are the polyphenols that come out of the fermentation of the beer, the hops, or the red wine in particular, the polyphenols that come out of the grape skin have been shown to be beneficial. So,
Mhm.
what I would say is that alcohol is never healthy, but it's important for our culture. If you're going to drink wine, drink it in very much in moderation. Don't drink it for health, drink it for tradition.
Mhm. Okay. How about oils? Different type of oils, olive oil versus not olive oil.
Yeah, it's this is a controversial area because there are many people that demonize certain seed oils and things like that. I will give you I'm a scientist, so I'm just going to tell you my honest opinion based on truth. Real scientists tell you when they don't know. Okay, I'll tell you what I do know. I do know extra virgin olive oil is very healthy. Don't consume too much of it. The sweet spot for extra virgin olive oil is about 3 to 4 tablespoons of per day. Is heart healthy, lowers inflammation, lowers the risk of certain cancers, good for your metabolism. You don't need to go more than that. So don't drink a glass of olive oil thinking it's healthy. That much is too much. Okay. On the other hand, I think that um, many people on the internet and social media demonize canola oil and rapeseed oil and peanut oil and lots of other oils that are common around the world. I don't think that those oils, the evidence isn't there to show how bad they are. I
Mhm.
think that olive oil is probably the best type of oil to have. But having a natural, less processed oil is the way to go. And try not to reuse oils, because I think in many places you want to save the oil. It can be expensive, and so you cook with something and you pour the oil after you cooked with it back to save it for the next day. I remember my grandparents used to do this at a time, especially if you're frying something, which isn't a healthy way to cook anyway. But if you save your oil, that just remember any oil, including a healthy olive oil, changes every time it's been heated up, superheated. And when it changes, it will actually turn something healthy into something that's unhealthy because you'll start creating carcinogens and cancer-causing byproducts by repeatedly heating up the oil over and over and over again, right? So I like to say, don't use too much oil at once. Don't save the oil after you've used it. Just put the amount you need for cooking, and that will be the best, healthiest way to do it.
Mhm. So as a follow-up to that, does it mean that it's not also good to kind of have leftover meals that you reheat and that
No,
you
leftover.
freeze and things like that?
Yeah. Well, freezing is actually good because freezing can lock in and trap the dietary polyphenols, and fiber, tends to stay good. Uh, Freezing is really mostly about the texture of the food after you thaw it again. But freezing is fine. Keeping leftovers is totally fine as well, because you're not. If you have oil in food and you're reheating the food, the oil is not going to change its chemistry. It's just going to heat it up because it's found in other food as well. So cook some a lentil stew or lentil soup. All right, put all the creative things and spices in there. Cook enough. You could eat that for several days, and in fact,
Mhm.
it'll taste better as the flavors actually blend over the next day or two.
Mhm. Great. All right. I think we're really over time, but we have so many questions, and it's so interesting this talk that we may have to have you back again to share with us. But thank you so much for your time. And do you have any last words or any last, you know, advice for us working at the UN in a very stressful kind of job situation?
Yeah, no, my my take-home message for you is to love your food, to love your health. And in when you're working in stressful environments, and I'm a doctor, my work can be pretty stressful as well. Um, Take the time to really think ahead and plan for a meal or two in which you control you make the selection of what you eat and make it healthy for you, but really love it. And that way you have something to look forward to that's going to be good for your body as well.
Great, thank you. Thank you so much. Yeah, so eat to live, eat to beat disease. Thank you so much. We will be sharing this presentation. If anyone's interested to sign up for future um, talks, we'll put out link there. But thank you, Dr. Lee, and this was really helpful to all of us. I have a long grocery list now, and I think all of us will be eating, inspired by you, we'll probably be eating much more healthily and more consciously going forward. Thinking really about what kind of food we're putting into our bodies and how helpful it is to us.
Yeah, well, thank you. And for anybody that wants to keep up with new information, please visit my YouTube site, my channel. It's at Dr. William Lee LI, and you'll get a stream of information coming out that I'm putting out every single week.
Great. Thank you, Dr. Lee. And I hope we'll all have this glow like you have.
Thank you very
Thank you
much.
so much. All right. Take
Bye bye
care,
now.
everybody. Have a good day and see you next time. All right. Thank you.
Bye bye.
Bye.